Yeah, dude, I gotta say, I don't really care about this Star Wars movie all that much. Like, I'm surprised how totally fine I am. Considering I was a little upset after The Last Jedi. Like, these are movies. They're made for kids. They are what they are. Like, it happens. It comes out. It's gonna be fine. There is nothing you can do about the upcoming movie. It's already made. It's coming out, you know? Like, you can just sit back and enjoy it. I'm really glad you're taking such a calm approach. Yeah, I've been dedicating most of my life to this saga, but like it's fine. It's fine. I'm not stressed at all. I'm so okay. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And yes, if I could change things, I would, but like it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I thought you said you were okay. You know what? I am mad about The Last Jedi because we had a whole movie to get stuff done. We had an entire 2 hours and 45 minutes to take us somewhere. It could have been The Empire Strikes Back. We had The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens, whether fans like it or not, is a decent start, and it ruined things. It took us nowhere. Where did we end up? The same place we started, and people like to say it's a work of art. It takes us nowhere. And how are they going to make it any better? JJ, baby, what's up? Hey. No, don't worry how I got this number. So I know you're finished technically the Rise of Skywalker, but I had some notes for you before it airs tonight, you know. I know it's already technically premiered, but there's still time. We still got this. You know, like we've got this. I mean, You better handle Leia right, JJ. That happened. That was a movie, and it was a movie that happened. After what feels like forever, we are finally here. We're finally at the end. And whether or not we unanimously agree on that ending, it's still the end of an era, regardless. And this is a non-spoiler review, by the way. My thoughts on this are very raw and very real, and it's not necessarily something well thought out. So I'm just warning you now. I mean, like, I'm gonna see it again, I think, next week, and my thoughts very well might change upon a rewatch and given me some extra clarity, because I was like an anxiety attack this entire movie, and I was that way for The Last Jedi too. I walked out of the theater this time, I think, much more relieved and a little bit more at peace with myself and with the saga. I'm gonna start off by saying who I think this movie is for. And of course, it's for Star Wars fans. It's supposed to be for Star Wars fans. That is the idea. They hit you with a lot of nostalgia here. If you're into seeing the relics of the past, of what has technically kind of connected this entire saga, I mean, like, they hit you with it constantly. So it's something that I really appreciated when it was there. I didn't feel like it was as heavy-handed as I think a lot of people were making it out to be. It wasn't as on the nose, I thought, as, you know, some of the stuff in The Force Awakens, and I genuinely really liked The Force Awakens. If you loved The Force Awakens, you will love this movie. If you hated The Force Awakens, you will probably hate this movie. If you love The Last Jedi, though, you might not love this. If you're here for Rey and Kylo, you might love it. You might hate it. It just depends on where you fall. And if you're an anti-person for the Kylo and Rey ship, you're gonna be scratching your head too. It's a movie that leaves you with a lot of questions, that too. So there's something to be said about that. I think one of the things that I found while watching this is that the character stuff, the stuff that was really important to me, how they handle the main characters and everything, and the old characters and the stuff they bring back and connect them all together, I think they did that very well. I think they handled Carrie Fisher's passing amazing. And this is something that's a little emotional for me in a sense, because Princess Leia has always been my favorite Star Wars character. She's been a huge inspiration for me. She was the first really strong female character that I grew up on, and it was really important to me that she was handled in a justifiable light, and I was very impressed. Not just with how they CGI'd her in a way. I mean, she's not CGI'd in because it's actual footage of her. They worked around that, and it didn't feel like that. It felt like it flowed very well. The things that she was saying in response, it felt like she was in the room with them, which was really special because she does have a brief little scene with Billy, who's her daughter in real life, and that was really cool to see too. And just kind of how these characters act around her and the actors are portraying them, you can definitely tell that this was something that they did with a lot of love, and they handled Carrie Fisher and Princess Leia's characterizations in such a well-mannered way, and it filled me with so much joy to see that, because I knew in my heart that in The Last Jedi, it wouldn't have been right for her to die in deep space like that. We had more of her to see, and we did, and I thought that they did a really good job with it, and there's so much great Leia content in this movie. If you're a big Leia fan, this is the movie for you. Rey's characterization was really cool in this. I think that we dove a little bit deeper with her. She's been trained. Thank you very much. She has had training. We have seen some of it. We see a glimpse of it in the beginning. It's pretty cool, the stuff that she can do and everything. She's very OP in this movie, guys. So if you don't like seeing that, you're gonna hate that. But I think the explanation that they have for why she's so OP is valid enough that I was able to accept it. The thing with the movie is that it's so messy in the beginning. It is like touch and go run, and they're going from planet to planet to planet to planet, and it's just jarring and it's quick and it gives you whiplash. It's kind of totally retconning The Last Jedi in a way. Everything that Rian Johnson does in The Last Jedi and the long time he takes to build to certain things that you're not sure what he's building to, The Rise of Skywalker is like da-da-dun, da-da-dun, da-da-dun. It's like the races. They're just trying to pick up all this time. And what's one of my issues with The Last Jedi is that it takes so much time up that we lost. And this movie, inevitably, no matter how you look at it, was going to be a time jump. It was going to have a lot of exposition, and there was going to be a lot of rushing. So these are things that I am personally, as a fan, able to forgive, because I think that while these movies, it's important to be able to rate them by their own merit in a way, because they are movies. I'm not really a film critic. I'm here to talk about Star Wars. And in terms of how this fits into Star Wars, it makes sense that there's a lot going on. There was a lot of loose ends that they kind of had to quickly tie up. You know, Snoke, we find out where he came from. It's the quickest one-off line ever, but I was able to accept it just because of the fact that it was something, and it kind of made sense in terms of being like, okay, well, this is a narrative that we're following now. This is where we're going. I think my issue with The Rise of Skywalker is my issue with The Last Jedi, in the sense that it's The Last Jedi's fault, in a way, that this does suffer a little bit in terms of pacing and in terms of the kind of stuff they try to squish in here, because we've known Palpatine was coming back, and I think they handled him considerably well. He should have been introduced in the last movie, and there's just so many things in this movie that I feel like I'm like, this should have happened in the previous movie. It's definitely 2 movies in one. That's why it feels like they took 4 hours of content and squished it into 2.5 hours, and like, it's never boring because it's just something is constantly happening. There's barely a moment to breathe, and I almost wish we had a little bit more of those quieter, intimate moments, but I understand why we couldn't have them, because there's no time to spare. There is some time allocated to certain newer characters that I didn't quite understand their purpose. Kerry Russell's character in particular, I felt wasn't the most necessary addition. There's a few fake outs in terms of shock value and everything, and I don't necessarily think that was 100% necessary, but it kind of makes up for the fact that when Poe, Finn, and Rey are like marching through the First Order, they're just mowing over guys. Like, there just was no doubt that they were just gonna cut through all these guys. Some of the characterizations, there's still humor in this one. I didn't feel like it was pushed as hard as it was in The Last Jedi. The humor in this is definitely a little bit more subdued. Like I said, there's not as much time. They're going, and I think they planet hop way too many times. And it is very jumbled in that. Like, I'm like, where are we? Where are we? Where are we? This is like Star Tours. Where are we? There's this really dumb thing that they invent, that they just use to try to get to the place they're supposed to go. It's like a compass in this. I'm not going to talk about what it is, but it's like a compass and it could have easily been something else that just would have been so much easier to explain, but it's the cheesiest and dumbest thing ever. Not ever. There have been dumber things in Star Wars, but it's pretty, it's weak. And I was like, all right, well, there's already something in canon that this can be. And I'll talk more about that in my spoiler review. I don't want to say anything spoiler-wise, not even like a tiny little thing. It's not perfect by any stretch. I think there's some things they could have cut. It's not quite Canto Bight large in terms of things they could cut, but I was like, okay, that was unnecessary. Kerry Russell's character, unfortunately, is kind of that character, and they do try to do a little something with Finn and the Stormtrooper thing. It's not what I wanted it. I think that that's a storyline that was unfortunately lost. I hate how they handle some of the logistical stuff with the Sith. I think a lot of purists are going to hate that too. It might be enough to ruin the movie for them, some of the crazy stuff they pull out of nowhere. The overwhelming threat of it all, I was like, isn't Palpatine enough? Like, that's kind of where I sat. I was like, isn't Palpatine enough? Because I think he is. And I think the way that Ian McDiarmid's performance, it's enough. It's enough to be scary. And the way that they have this whole, like, shrine and everything, like the thing you see in the trailer and stuff, it's enough. It's enough to be formidable enough. And that scene is really cool, I thought. I don't understand how critics are bashing it the way that they are, because if you liked The Force Awakens, which all of them do, the critics were obsessed with The Force Awakens, if you remember when it came out, I don't get how you can hate this one, because it feels like a successor to The Force Awakens. It feels very much in line with that movie. I thought that the thing with this movie is that it definitely is trying to please everyone, for better or for worse. It definitely pleased me. It gave me huge chunks of fan service, and maybe that's a bad thing to some people, but I don't know. I've always been under the impression your finales are for your fans. This is not some superior narrative and piece of artwork that's meant to be held above and presented to the gods. This is Star Wars. It's a fan experience, and honestly, like, this is for them. There's something really cool about the connectivity in this one. I did feel like that was present. I felt, though, that they ignored something very important. This entire saga, whether we like it or not, is after this fool. This is the reason we have the Skywalker saga. And this is the reason why we're where we are. And I just think it's kind of criminal to not acknowledge him enough. He's in the air, and he's there, like, in a certain way. His presence, I guess, is there in a certain way. But it's not in the focal point that you want it to be. And I think a lot of people think that, you know, Anakin he's the chosen one. He was the original one to bring light to the darkness. And it does kind of raise the question of, like, okay, well then what is Rey in all of this? And I liked that. I liked that they kept raising that question too. Because even the movie questions it. Who is Rey? What is Rey? We find out who Rey is twice, in a way, because who she is born and who she chooses to be are two different things, which I thought was a beautiful message in the end of this movie. The cinematography is perfect. John Williams is never the problem in terms of any Star Wars movie. The cinematic buildup that he creates with his music and the homages and the slow rise of familiar tunes is unlike any other. And I was brought to tears more than a few times in this movie. There were a few things with the Force that I thought were ridiculous, and I was like, okay, that was dumb. I'll get more into the things that annoyed me, I think, in the spoiler review that I'm inevitably going to do, because I can't talk about this stuff properly without spoiling it. I just thought that overall, as an experience, as a movie, I was entertained. I was pleased. As a fan, I think it stroked certain things that I needed to see, and that were stories that I thought were necessary to tell in a way. How we land with our villains. They did something that I thought, no, that would never happen. And they did it. And that was really cool to see, you know. The trio, I liked the way they interacted. A lot of people, I've been seeing a lot of reviews saying that they bicker a lot and it's annoying, but I thought it was realistic. I thought it was fun that Finn was was like the mutual friend, you know, when you're friends with that person and they're friends with someone else and you're kind of like, well, we're all hanging out, I guess. And that's the way that it is. They toy with your heart a lot in terms of Finn. I wish that he wasn't so underused in a way. I thought Oscar Isaac's character, I thought Poe Poe had some really solid development, I thought. And, like, that's the thing, too, is that this movie does try its best to take time and give you something for each character. It's just really hard because it rushes so much. And even the opening crawl has a ton of exposition. And it kind of bothers me that everyone knows about Palpatine, because nobody really knew about him. I mean, Leia even says in the movie at one point, and this isn't really a spoiler, because she's like, Palpatine has always operated from the shadows, and that's true. But everyone's like, down with Palpatine in the beginning of the movie, and I'm like, why though? I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan how they handled the Sith and the religion and all that stuff, because the Sith is ultimately just a religion in the way that the Jedi are just a religion. Sith does not equal dark side, and Jedi does not equal good side. There are other facets of that. Otherwise, Ahsoka Tano would not be a light force user, you know? She would be whatever. Like, it's not just black or white. And I think that one of the things with this trilogy is that it could have done to explore a little bit more of that. And it kind of does in Rey. It goes over the story of you're not who you're born, and it's who you choose to be, which I thought was something that, you know, was kind of not looked at in Star Wars. Because there's some new lightsabers in this movie. I want them real bad. Particularly one of them, but I want them real bad. There was some stuff in this movie that 8-year-old me would have just lost her mind at. And I think that's really what it's all about in the end of the day, is what we enjoy and what our inner child would enjoy. Because ultimately Star Wars is made for kids, and a lot of people take that in this condescending tone that only kids can enjoy it, but that's not just what I mean. Like, it's your inner child. Your inner child is what Star Wars appeases. And I thought that this movie hit all the marks. And there's a lot of boxes that JJ had to check off in terms of this movie. But let me know, guys, if you've seen The Rise of Skywalker, did you love it? Did you hate it? I can see both perspectives in a way, because I could see how certain people would hate this movie, and I could see why other people would love this movie. This trilogy is just so divisive, unfortunately. But I can't encourage you guys enough to surround yourself with what you love. And that will make you feel like significantly younger, which life is too short to surround yourself in what you hate. May the Force be with you guys. Have a great day.
I know you can't say anything about the story.
It did.
It did wrap. Just
Oh, it did.
wrap. Okay, cool.
I don't know.
Did it?
I don't know if it has.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God, he's good at
But
that.
just ending that, I mean, you know, finishing that chapter, what was it? You know, was it like kind of saying goodbye to this character?
Dan Jones. Dan Jones?